I mean, it all comes from the bottom, really. If we really look at where most music really starts, it's people kind of like bluesing out, people trying to like start a way and start their own lane and ways.
Let me take your soul for a ride, yeah. While the sun is up high,
I think I've always saw musicians as healers, really one of the strongest healers. You know what I mean? The therapy you need, and sometimes you don't know what a person's going through in life, and a night out for them, hearing what they want to need will send a person into, traject them into the right space, the right lanes they need.
Easy lay low and recline, y'all. Steady blowing O's to the sky. Yeah.
It was a huge case of DIY for many years in the States. It was, let's just put it together. Let's, if you build it, they will come.
Trapped in the music, of course, feeling enchanted.
He's like, dude, you don't have to be UK doing this. And he was saying that from then. Like, you don't have to sound this guy. You don't need the accent. You don't have to bubba. Just be you. Just do me a favor and be you.
Just taking the good energy, stay classy. Yeah.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the One More Thing podcast, a place where the brightest and most inspiring minds in beat-based and electronic music can tell us their story. So far we focused on UK artists, but for the first episode of 2023 we're heading west for our first international conversation. We're heading to Toronto, the current home of Brooklyn MC Terrence Nicholas. You will know him better as T.R.A.C, an artist who traverses that fine line between hip-hop and drum and bass like no other. Currently celebrating 5 years of his beautifully wide-armed and soulful album Life in Motion on V Recordings, T.R.A.C has had a truly unique journey from his roots as a young intern working at the iconic Def Jam right the way through to his current position as one of the most prominent and warmest and in-demand MC voices in drum and bass jungle. I'm Dave Columbo Jenkins, thanks for tuning in. This really is an amazing trip that features and name checks some pretty wild names from Kool Herc to LTJ Booker, 50 Cent to Marc Mac. What an awesome way to start the year. Huge shouts to T.R.A.C for giving us his time and being up for this podcast. Huge shouts to you for tuning in. Please stick around. Enjoy.
One more thing.
T.R.A.C, this is really special to me, man. This is the first international podcast that I'm doing. It's the first podcast of the year as well. This is a huge one for me because I don't think anyone can tell the story. I'm always fascinated between the relationship between hip hop and jungle drum and bass because the two are two peas in a pod. And I don't think there's anyone who could tell a story in the way that you can. And join those dots, 4 letters, 4 dots. Let's join some dots.
4 dots. Yeah, man. It's a long history, more than I think we realize, to be honest. And when I was put on the game, I think once I realized how much hip hop influenced a lot of parts of drum and bass those were the parts that I attached to most to make it what it is. And that's literally the starting, even down, not even just down to like technical breaks and things, just as a New York person, the people we were around, the MCs we were around, everybody had a swag in a certain way. And it was like, oh, okay, I understand this language. I can speak it. And then so goes the story, so to speak. So
yeah. I mean, the parallels between the culture. Yeah, even if before you even include the music or the sample sources or anything like that, the language, the contributions, the appreciation and the approach to art, really, and the street culture, isn't it?
Yeah, the street culture. I mean, it all comes from the bottom, really. If we really look at where most music really starts, it's people kind of like bluesing out, people trying to like start a way and start their own lane and ways. And sometimes it just comes out in a rhythmic way. And next thing you know, you have a new style out on the streets, or somebody's wearing polo shirts, and polo shirts are really meant for, a certain style of people or a certain class of people, and it looks really good on them. Or, it's people find ways, and it's the story of just trying to make yourself feel better, in so many ways. So
yeah, make yourself feel better and put yourself out there, get yourself up, really, isn't it?
Yep. I used to argue quietly with people that I think Kool Herc, the legendary Kool Herc, that he started the first rave. So you can argue with it if you like, but outside, street lights, people
Sound
music,
system.
yeah, sound system, and just people from all walks of life actually at certain points. So, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. I'm just teasing
It's
over.
definitely part of that journey, though, isn't it? That's where
Mhm.
it kind of all began. Take it even further back to Jamaica, then really for
Yeah,
sound system culture. But that bringing people together and creating something really, and yeah, just breaking down barriers as well, really, isn't it?
breaking down barriers, putting people in better moods and spirits that need it. I think I've always saw musicians as healers, really one of the strongest healers. You know what I mean? The therapy you need, and sometimes you don't know what a person's going through in life, and a night out for them, hearing what they want to need will send a person into, traject them into the right space, the right lanes they need. So, I'm
Oh,
really big about what we do here. So, yeah.
absolutely. You've just sent off a whole ripple of goosebumps all up and down my body. You're absolutely right. And you don't, that's where we find solace and healing in these things as a listener, as a creator, as a gig experiencer, in all of those different levels. When was the first time you healed yourself through music, either somebody else's music and then through your own creation?
I don't remember the first time, but I do remember when I realized it. And it had to be somewhere around between 15 and 17 years old. Uh, a girlfriend I was seeing was moving to another place, so we had to break up. And I went through all the pains and woe is me, I'm young and stuff.
Yeah, classic teenage
And
vibes.
then I had like certain records. The one record I will say that it was for me at that time was there was an in vogue jazzy version of "Give It Up, Turn It Loose." It had like
Okay.
these amazing chords, doom, 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 and it was just catching me to be like, yeah, yeah, they're right. Just move on, and it just kind of just set me in a better way of futurist, because yeah, at 17, breakups are crazy. So, oh no, she's leaving me. Her family's leaving me. All right. Oh, yeah.
It feels like the end of the world.
It was like the end of the world, but yeah, music has been my savior for everything, to be honest. So,
Wow. I mean, it's like a diary, really, isn't it? And especially from the point of view as a songwriter, as a lyricist, it's even
mhm.
more like a literal diary, isn't it, really?
What's funny? You don't realize it though. I mean, yes, you do it with intent of, expressing whatever it is, but then there'll be a song that might not even be about what you need it to be about. And then you come back to it later and realize what you were talking about somehow it still cuts and relates to it. It's just crazy. So there's all these entendres that you sometimes don't know, or sometimes you're just making a huge metaphor out of something that just relates to a whole, so it's beautiful in that respect. That's why I guess we consider it art, because of the many things you can get out of it and how the different perspectives of what you get out of it.
Yeah.
But I looked back at some things and was like, whoa, I said that. I said, even lines like "shine so hard, my dreams cast shadows." I still go, "Oh my god, did I just say that? That's crazy." So
Brilliant. So this isn't these like kind of come to you in a way, then you're just in the flow and it comes out. Then this is not contrived. You don't have to sit there and headbutt a wall or something sometimes, as you do when you're playing around with words.
no, no, I haven't headbutt a wall in years, to be honest.
So what was the first time then that you did put pen to paper and you found kind of solace in that type of way and started expressing yourself?
Going back. So back in the day, it's as simple and plain as my family just moved to a part of Brooklyn called Brownsville. We just had my father owned his house, and parts of Brownsville at the time was a little rough. I mean, for a little kid, I lived a really good childhood life, but for parts of it, there was a lot of things that maybe my parents were a little bit not wanting to put yourself into. So whenever I would mess up in school, I would go on these super long punishments. It didn't matter. Oh, you missed your homework? Grounded, stuff like
Oh,
that.
go on.
You went late to school, grounded or whatever. And what I didn't realize at the time, the reason why I was getting so grounded was my parents were pretty much saving me from the outside influences of what was going on. There was a lot of craziness going on at the time.
Right.
And
So by grounding you, they were keeping you out of that trouble or out of
yep,
temptation.
yep. So after now I'm doing whatever I need. I have all these composition books. I'm looking at all these, listening to the radio 98.7 WBLS, and just listening to this stuff like till 2, 3, and then catching the pirate radio stations with P Fun and Teddy Ted and Awesome 2 and all these guys. And I'll just be up, just fascinated, but just what hip hop is doing on these radio shows with people who sound like me, look like me, and this music. And then um
What a
somewhere along
time.
the
What a time that must have been, because that was
yes,
all happening. A lot of it, a great deal of it was happening within a few miles radius of where you were grounded, where you were stuck in your room. Like,
absolutely. Exactly. And yeah, you couldn't dodge the influence of hip hop, if especially in New York City. So, you know, I think Rakim or KRS One may have been the first real influence for me to like try to write something. And I wrote something, and then I wrote something, and then I wrote something, and then my brother had a those big radios, those boxes that you just put on your shoulders,
yeah.
except that his wasn't just a radio you put on the shoulder. You could like hook a mic up and record yourself while you're rapping over while
Oh,
you
wow. Go on. Luxury
so I
model.
started making like my first demos with like, I would there would be some instrumentals playing that we had on cassette. Throw the cassette on one side, throw the the blank cassette on the other, press play and record, and then just start rapping over it and then listening to myself rap over hot tracks and beats. Like
Amazing.
some I wish stay where they are. I don't want anybody to hear them. I think at the time my rap name was Track One at the time, or T Ski, one or the other. And yeah, they were fun times for me. So but go back to the story. I pretty much was filling up composition books I'm supposed to be using for school are now just filled with all kinds of words and raps. And before you know it, I'm literally like, it was the way of getting out of depression. It was the way of being creative. It was the way of, you know, but it was for myself. It wasn't really for out there to put to the world until one day I had to write something for the school's I forgot what you call that time, but it was auditorium. We had a band, and it was Christmas time, and they wanted somebody to help them write a rap, and it was me, and I wrote the rap, and I'm sitting down watching the girl and the guy say the rap on stage, and the whole crowd is like, go, go, go. And it was like, it was
Yeah.
exhilarating. And I think that those were the times that I realized that, oh, this can actually, something really can happen with this. This is, I'm good with it. But those were the early times. It's just, you just start from somewhere, and you start from somewhere, and if it sticks, it sticks. And then before you know it, you're just going. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. And I know from another recent podcast that you did with Marcus Visionary, one of those tapes that you made actually ended up getting you an internship at Def Jam, didn't it?
Oh God, yes, that was also you know the fella name is Gibi Jazani. God bless the dead. Shouts to Dante Ross. Stimulated Dummies. This guy worked at a Greenwich Village Youth Council. We used to go there to play basketball to speed up the story. And my friend, no, I was a really shy person. I'm still a shy person. And he was like, he raps. He just said just like that, like he raps.
Just
Yo,
throw you in the
he's
deep
like, oh, you
end.
rap? Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I was like, I just looked at him, and he was like, yeah, he was like, yo, give him your tape, man. Give him your tape. Give him your tape. And I just gave it to whatever. I didn't know who, I really had no idea at the time that this guy was working with like brand Nubians and third base. And, we're just going there to play ball away from Brooklyn. And then he listened to the demo tape. He liked it. I would say that maybe Dante probably didn't, and the other fella, I forgot this dude's name. Oh, I never really got a chance to really link it. But Stimulated Dummy Crew was pretty much like, it's cool, but yeah, they got other things going on. So he gave me the opportunity to pretty much be like, well, look, I think I see potential in you. I'd love to see if you would love to be part of the music industry in some form. And I just said yes. It didn't matter where it was. And then Def Jam was mentioned, Tommy Boy was mentioned, I think Motown was mentioned. All I heard was Def Jam, and you
Wow.
know, and so it begins. And I literally went in. I was nervous about the interview, and I was like, I'd start right now. I was just sitting there like super blown that this could happen, and that's what I did. I walked into that Def Jam space and was walking the hallways in circles like daily, just trying to be a part of something because I would knock out the work and then be like, what else is there to do? What else is there to do? You know, was like a little kid in a candy store pretty much. So
Wow, like almost quite literally, because you must have been in your teens at this time. This is a very young track here now, isn't it?
yeah, 20s, I would say early 20s.
That, I mean, that would have been like kind of peak Def Jam, or definitely when they were really, making serious ripples across everything, really.
Yeah, that was around the time they just signed Method Man.
Oh, okay.
Warren G just got his triple platinum award. This is
So we're still
also,
in the
let's not
golden era.
forget,
We're still in the 90s here then.
right? Let's not forget Bad Boy's about to take off. Man, RIP to Chris Lighty and what Violator was about to do. It was about to be a very special time that I'm really happy that I was a part of in general. Jay-Z, I saw Jay-Z come through the door with Dame Dash with
What?
the brown paper bag and all that stuff. I don't want to go
Oh,
to, I don't know how much I
wow.
can reveal, but yeah, I came in just at that time and was blown away by these superheroes on a regular basis and what was capable of happening at Def Jam. Whew, yeah, that is golden experience. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that was the Motown for our generation, especially for you growing up, in the shadow of Def Jam there. That would have
Yeah.
been like growing up in Detroit in the 60s or something like that, like a game changing institution.
Yeah. It showed me structure. It showed me how things look on the inside at a top level. So there wasn't too much guessing other than, yo, we need to do this and we need to do that. And then at some point, they actually put me to task with bigger responsibilities to help those tasks go. So I got to see how things overall really work in a business setting. You know what I mean? Like I say, like Def Jam was pretty much my college for me in the midst of all this stuff of learning and so like yeah, I mean
Wow. Wow. How
it
long did
was
that last for? And what did that lead to? Did it lead to other jobs in the industry? Or was it a bit of an anticlimax when that
well
ended?
I'll say this, it climaxed and then not I mean because you always get into these little it was, oh my God, we're doing great. Oh my God, we're doing great. Oh my God, we are busting our ass up here. And then as soon as you start talking money, and as soon as you start talking, well, how can we like do this? Then you got people who hate to hear that, and you get caught up in a whole nother ego side of the world. I probably personally should have not listened to none of that because it what pretty much happened was that it just kind of derailed you a little bit off the path and situations of the sorts. As I try to say it nicely, of course, but
Of course. I mean, it's classic
right,
industry, the dark side of the industry, really, isn't it? The
yeah,
greed, the money, the corporate side of it, the commercialization, everything, all of it diluting the creativity and the real soul of it.
yeah, and it's the business side, it's the aspect, but you know, we're talking a world of privilege, right? Like I'm at Def Jam. Let's just think about. I'm just saying that name itself is like what. So whatever was going on can and will happen in those spaces. It's just a matter of who you align yourself with and what is your bottom line. What are you going after? So for me it was education, and for me it was maybe I can put some things together. Maybe I can even get a record deal or something, But I got caught up in side things and I let I let a lot of my own young ego get the best of me when I probably just should have fought through a lot of the things. I probably could have. So, but it was a very blissful time, and I'm always super appreciative whenever I run into a lot of my homies from that time. So,
Yeah. And that kind of set you on the path there, really, and gave you a lot of lessons for the industry and stuff like that. So, what
yeah.
happened next then after that? And when did Jungle come into all of this?
So, yeah, right after Def Jam was Columbia for a while, Sony Columbia. I worked with Shaka Zulu, who was Shouts to
Wow.
Shaka Zulu was disturbing the peace and all that, and he was running at the time. I hooked up with a young 50 Cent, so helping about everything. That
Wow.
yeah, it's crazy that I could say that, to be honest. But that went on for a little bit until Shaka was pretty much getting ready to go to Atlanta, and when that happened, Liquid Sky somehow showed up into my world because of IQ, I believe. And yeah, somewhere in between there, we dropped a record called Next Level Shit for Liquid Sky. Somewhere
Yeah.
in between that time, it was like my first ever record. I was geesed. I wasn't really understanding of all the rave culture and the drum and bass and but I was just happy that I had my own record out. And so it was still a nuance for me for a little bit. But in the midst of like just like transitioning, I guess, from all the commercial and hip hop, Liquid Sky opened their doors to me. And Liquid Sky showed me more of my artist side to go on tour and to be on the road and to perform. And, I'm taking this all as like building blocks for me as an artist now, because I've seen all this and I know what this is. And now
Yeah.
I'm taking that and I'm applying it to my artistry as a level of like, this is how I want to go about things. And Liquid Sky, Digital Confusion, those guys all introduced me to the rave world, the underground, a nuance that I've never experienced in New York. And at first I was weirded out, but eventually I understood everything, because then you realize no, you just need to get rid of all your ignorances about what you see and how you see things. So
Yeah. And they are. I mean, they're two. We talked about the parallels and the closeness between the cultures and the spirit and stuff, but they're two very different social events, aren't they? A hip hop gig and a rave where everybody's inebriated in one way or another and it's chaos and stuff like that.
yeah,
It's a whole other world to get used to in that type of way, really, isn't it?
it is. But I mean, I think we made an excuse of it, but people used to say a lot of people are going to these raves because they're getting tired of going to hip hop clubs and getting them shot up in fights and wild stuff. So a lot of people just defected to that. But after and that could be it for some, but I really think that there was just something special about what was going on with the next level of music, or whatever you want to call it, this transition in the vibes that was
Yeah.
happening in the underground, happening in illegal spaces, everything that hip hop was once was, it was doing. And there were hip hop dudes in there for me that made it even more relatable. And Zulu Nation, RIP is, and shouts to Jamalski and these guys. And this was something else happening here, and we were watching maybe the birth of it within the States, I guess, or New York, one or the other.
Yeah, definitely. I'm part of one of the longest running institutions as well. So I think you became a resident with Konkrete Jungle, didn't you?
With Konkrete Jungle.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mac is shouts to Mac, and Mac was a really good supporter of everyone. Didn't matter who you were, what you look like, come in, give a good. I learned like Konkrete Jungle was my dojo pretty much, to like really get my performance, get over my shyness, and all of it. It was just building blocks, and we get to try new styles. We tried everything in there, to be honest. It was a moment in time where every Monday we would just go there and just whatever. Just Mac probably won't get the credit he deserves for saving a bunch of kids.
Oh,
I will say
wow.
that.
Go on.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I'd love to interview him at one point, really, because what I'm fascinated by, and I know I've spoken to you this before because I do plan to write a book on it at one point, is I admire the fierceness of crews in America, because drum and bass, it wasn't played on the radio like it is over here. It wasn't a proud American institution like hip hop or rock or any of the big
Yeah.
sounds. This is proper underground. You had to really believe in it, and to do it on a school night as well, on a Monday, or you got D&B Tuesdays, Respect Thursdays. You've got all of these institutions which have been running longer than most nights in the UK ever have. And some of them are still going on strong now, pushing 30 years. And I admire that. I respect that hugely, because that is real passion for the craft and wanting to creating something that you want to see in the world, and bringing it over and bringing over the DJs and creating local heroes and stuff
Mhm.
like that. You were part of that.
Oh. Wow. And yeah, that's, to be honest, like the things that were running through my head and all the It was a huge case of DIY for many years in the States. It was, let's just put it together. Let's, if you build it, they will come,
Mm.
And there was a different vibe and a different energy when people talk about the that mid '90s to early '90s side of what was going on here. I envy them because I caught just the tail end of what was probably there was a party called NASA, the DB and all these guys would throw. There was a lot. Again, we're back to illegal parties. My homies, Digital Confusion crew, used to throw parties any place possible, under bridges, in whatever little condemned spaces. It was just a different thing, and they all just did it out of love and did it out of like, you know, just growing, I guess. It's our own thing. It's pretty much what it is. It's our own thing.
I love that. I absolutely love that. What are your favorite memories of Konkrete Jungle then? Maybe particular guests who kind of emceed for, or moments where you could feel things coming together and you could feel the penny dropping in your head, if you like.
That's a good question, man. Oh man. There's a couple of really good times. Well, I want to say one of them was with my boy IQ, with me and him, and I think I forgot what it was, but we had a couple of great nights there. There's a night with Slinger and TC is with me, him. There was a rap group one time by the name of Zion I that was like hot on the scene, and they was like, they just got it written up in the source, 5 mics next, this and that, and they came to Konkrete Jungle, and we all was on stage, just going at it, freestyling and rapping and losing our minds on stage. That is a question that I have to like sit down and like, because I don't know what's the most pivotal. I just remember having a lot of like massive fun, maybe a New Year's Eve party or something. I don't know. Yeah, something. But it was,
God. I mean,
it
kind of
was
being British, I would have assumed, and this is wrong for me to assume, but I got to be honest, like, that your key memories would be people like Brian or Frosty coming over.
Oh,
And I wondered, if that's how you kind of made the link with, I mean, we'll get to this as the interview develops, but your alignment with some of the most important names in this culture, Marc Mac, Jumping Jack Frost, Brian G. Like, I wondered if a lot of that had come through Konkrete Jungle and MCing for people and striking a chord, building a friendship type of thing.
man, I'm as local as it gets, man. I think I at one point New York was trying to wave a New York flag for drum and bass. It was maybe not the most listenable. I won't say listenable. I don't It was hard, brash, staticky, dirty, rumbly. Nothing was clean. It was awkward, and we loved it.
Yeah.
But only we loved it. You know what I'm saying? And as a hip hop guy, those are all the ingredients that work in hip hop. All
DIY, yeah.
So I was like, yeah, let's go. What are these guys? We're putting out stuff like that, and then across the water is putting out brown paper bag. They're putting out, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it's like, all right, yeah, we got a little bit more to go, and obviously the UK leads the way, and they are the guys that's going to carry the sound where it needs, of course. But yeah,
that
we
first
really
single, though, that first single that you did with IQ, Next Level Shit, I mean, that joins the dots in the most perfect way. That blew my mind when you sent that over to me. I was unaware of that song until I started preparing for this interview.
Oh,
because it's
man.
years before the first thing that you put, before anything else that you put out officially. So it's
Yeah,
like predates everything, really.
And that happened off of a favor, actually. Not even, I won't say, well, yeah, I can say that. I'm working on a demo. Again, where I'm Def Jam certified, I'm one of the interns, and I'm one of the guys in the offices and stuff. Q was always trying to figure out how to, so, you should really be a part of this. And he kind of gave me the base rules. He's like, dude, you don't have to be UK doing this. And he was saying that from then. Like, you don't have to sound this guy. You don't need the accent. You don't have to bubba da bubba da bub. Just be you. Just do me a favor and be you. You know what I mean? And I didn't have an idea. So him saying that was probably super key into who T.R.A.C is now. You know what I mean? Like, in a level of like, I could be somebody else right now. And we went around, and there was a record or two that I had for another track that we heard at the time Q-Tip and Dilla put out the record, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it's around that time, but they had the same sample. And hip hop was like, oh, if he uses the same sample, then we're not using the same sample kind of thing. So I had loose rhymes. And I was like, stayed late at his house one day and was like, let's just do the record. Whatever you want to do. If you want to do the drum and bass record, let's do it now. And we literally stayed up from maybe 9 in night till like 8 in the morning working on this one record. And
Wow.
it was also like my real introduction to get to know the sound of like jungle drum and bass. Like I was in the parties, I'm looking at the people, I'm not getting it. I'm looking around, and it's cool vibes. People, I'm like, waiting to hear something that I might relate to most. And I was like, but it was all just pretty much going past my head at the time. So here I am now saying, all right, let's just try something out. And we both pretty much had our heads. All I can tell you is that our heads was in the sky at like 6, 7 in the morning, going, yo, what the fuck did we just do, dog? What did we just do? What is this? What the hell is this? And man, I think I had to leave that morning. Q didn't even go to sleep that day. He went ahead and just took his ass the next hour to Liquid Sky and was like, Soul Slinger, you need to put this on the next compilation, which he eventually did. And it's probably, I couldn't be more grateful for that happening. And so it began,
Brilliant.
So it began.
So that record is the sound of you making sense of where you fit in, your own voice within the drum arrangements, and finding your sound. Like you can hear that development, and you can hear that in the record as well. The way that it flips between hip hop and jungle in that way. What a historical record!
Yeah, very man. I mean, to New York, it's an anthem. To New York, it's a quiet classic anthem. When they play it, it's love all over the place. But it was the building block for a lot. When you have people come up to you and say, yo, I've never heard nothing like that, and they're saying what you're saying, and it's like, oh, so this is something that we don't understand. This is something special. This is something that, like, okay. And those became ways of encouragement. And even for people who may have who never not understand drum and bass or jungle at the time, that was their opening. You know what I mean? That was their way of like, oh my God, this is amazing. I can, so holy smokes.
You create a reference point, don't you? Really, then, and if you've opened a door for people, you've created that kind of neural network between the two worlds, really, in that way,
without even knowing it. Without even knowing it, and to be honest, I probably wouldn't know the effect of that record until many, many years later, when people are walking up to me and going, I remember this record. This is the record that got me into raves. This is the record I heard here, and this and that. And
wow.
Yeah. And I'll leave that alone. But there was other people that were kind of using that record too to spread the love out there. I got to give them love too. So
brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, what did you make of the UK's take on MC culture anyway, and rapping in general? And I mean, kind of more from a jungle context, but also, I mean, did UK hip hop really kind of enter your psyche? Because during that time, UK was still finding its voice. I mean, UK hip hop is amazing now, and obviously we got grime, and we've got our own style. But in the 90s, there was still a lot of people trying to sound American. Everybody had a twang, and it wasn't until I would say stuff like, we found our own MC culture, that we found our own voice in that way in the UK. But what did you make of UK rappers in general on both sides of the tempo?
There's a couple names that popped to my head. One is Cookie Crew.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember the Demon Boys. There was something they did. And shouts to Devastate as well. I'm trying to remember the most definitive name, because most of the stuff with the way it was for America, whenever we heard UK, we expected something that was dancey and something that wasn't, a little bit, it was just more broad. And America always would take those UK sounds and make it a broad thing. Dance music sounded real scoff, like they were scoffing at people, like, no, just different than yours and this and that. But we will always hear like an MC or two over the top of a lot of those dance styles. And I mean, it took a while before I heard like it's somebody I'm missing. And you could even say Slick Rick if you want to just put Slick Rick in there. But Slick Rick is really from here. No, he lived his life here and he took that UK accent and made it so fly and fresh that
Yeah.
you know, but I guess I gotta say that my boy Lewis Parker was my real like moment of like hearing UK cats really do hip hop properly in a sense, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, I want to say that he may be literally the one. I'm like in shock. Like, is this true? Yeah, it might
Oh,
be.
because you worked closely with him, right? Because that was a couple of years then into the 2000s then. And he was the next, he played a huge role then in that next part of your development, didn't he?
Oh, he played. Oh man, he lived out here. His era of coming to Queens and then inviting people to Sunnyside to come chill out. I mean, those were really, really amazing times. Music was playing, artists and superstars were coming through. Hungry MCs who were super nice, who you don't know about, was melting the studio down, and sounds and vibes were just flowing. And Lewis, I don't even think he knows it, but he also may be a proper lifesaver to a lot of people because of just opening his doors and trying to figure out what he wanted to do and stuff. So yeah, that's
Wow. So
crazy.
he created a kind of community hub then in one of these, like we were talking about Cool Herc earlier, creating those spaces for people to be magnetized towards each other and share ideas and share energy.
And share energy and hey, I'm doing something, just jump on this and let's go. And because if you're at the studio, that's what's going on. Get on the spot, let's go, boom, boom, boom. It's that camaraderie, that sharpening your sword, and just making really good music. And
Wow. And properly on the spot then as well.
he was
So
doing that not in London. He was doing that in Queens. He was in Queens, New York, with MCs from everywhere. Yeah, wow. I don't even think he real. I got to hit him up one day, but I don't even think he realizes that, man. But going back to the situation, yeah, I would say listening to a lot of his stuff. Uh, I was like, oh, so guys, are really doing it like how we're doing it overall, and it was really good to hear overall. Because usually we would hear as an state as a Westerner, we would hear really high appreciation for the style of music, a certain style of hip hop, and that's what we would mostly hear. And then we would hear, but then for me, I would hear a lot of French people, I hear a lot of German people. Just you can hear it in them. You don't know what they're saying, but the melody, the flow, the way they're locked in, it's like, oh my god, this is amazing.
yeah.
And so to hear like Lewis Parker, damn, is it Lewis? Yeah, it really is Lewis. That to hear him come out and just wax and just do things the way it is, it was like, oh, okay, so we're all one. That's what it is. Yeah,
Wow. Wow. Another game changer. So
another
what
game
point?
changer.
This was all on the road to your first album, The Network,
Yes.
really, wasn't it? So is it, and this like at one point here, then you must have connected with Marc Mac. So how did you become friends with him?
Well, here we go again. Once upon a time in Toronto, I play, but I was in Toronto. I was thinking about at the time, if I'm honest, that I was thinking about just being done with like music in general. I had enough. I was
Wow.
just there to pick up. Yeah, that's crazy, right? Yeah. And I just had a moment to myself where I was just thinking about, well, what do you want to do? In comes, remember AIM? You remember AIM, the messenger?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So we all, I'm done with music, but my AIM's going crazy. And then one of them has to be from a friend named DJ Odie, who hit me up out of the blue and was like, dude, you have to listen to this. And I was like, what? He sends me the file, pick up the file, listen to the file. It's a project called Visionaires. So you listen to Visionaires, and it's amazing orchestrated covers of hip hop melodies and stuff, and it sounds hella good. Like it was, man, it was. I don't know. It enriched my ears,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, so these Visionaire guys, okay. I went trying to punch them up, couldn't find much. Visionaire this, and then one thing led to a fella named Marc Mac, and I always laugh about this because I'm thinking it's some dude out of Ohio. You know what I mean? There was a lot of dudes calling themselves Mac back in, in the States. So I was like,
Yeah.
so I kind of just sent like a regular message on MySpace to be like, hey, so this is one track you got on here. I don't know, maybe I might try and fool around with it, but I would rather get permission from you than to just jump on your record. And then I started reading his bio and stuff, and I'm going, oh, electronic music? Oh, drummer bass jungle? Oh. I was like, dude, I think we got a lot in common, man. Let's chop it up sometime. He hit me back at the time and he was like, hey, it's cool. And he was like, hey, you got some good music yourself. I was like, yeah, I'm trying, but I kept it real with him at the time. I was like, look, I'm not in the best place. I don't know what I want to do, but I just know that this is really good stuff and I'd like to do something with you. It didn't dawn on me later than when you talk about, oh, I got 2 pages at home. I got LaFleur. Oh,
Mm.
this is for Hero. What? Nah,
So
this
that
is
penny didn't drop for a minute then.
I was sitting there like it didn't make sense at all. But and then when we finally spoke on the phone to make sure we're both not like trolls or something, I was like, oh, this is really humble juice. This is I'm talking to a legend. And wow, you know what I mean? So, one thing led to another, and then eventually the talk of doing like a full-length project. At the time, I wasn't the one to always finish all projects. I'd get like 5, 6 songs, and then there's a big argument between me and the producer or whatever. And at this time, I'm in a new space. I'm in Toronto. I have a lot of productive people, and we knock out a whole project. It was the most emotional time for me at the time. So,
Wow.
and then he heard the
Wow.
project, and it'll go down in history. I'm putting it out there, Mark. So forgive me, but Mark said to me personally, we believe in you. And I never heard that as an artist. And even now it's a little emotional
Oh,
to
wow. So even in all of these years running up, you'd never actually kind of been given that
no,
type of encouragement, empowerment.
no. I always felt like I had to be better, stronger. And in New York, let's not say that they didn't have that same notion, but in New York, it's competitive. It's like, even if you say your best rap is like, it's okay, man. It's okay
Yeah.
means you're really good in so
Yeah.
many ways. But here I am now with some truth moments saying, oh my God, I actually have a chance to do something really dope and something out of nothing, like we were just talking about. We end up with that, and we chase some deals. We end up with a BBE deal. Uh, first, first, a whole bunch of firsts are happening, and things are actually going according to plan. So, yeah, that's
Wow.
that's a crazy story.
And you were going to quit before that.
I
Did you have another job? Was there another occupation that you were kind of trained for, or did you have something else on the side, or another way of earning? What were you going to stop music for in that way?
Four that's the question that I was trying to figure out, my man. Probably something in the corporate world. Maybe start off as a mail clerk, then end up with a desk and office and suit and chair, which would still was good. Still good to do, to be honest. But um, I was just at a crossroads of working so hard for everything that I've done that it just felt like, damn, I'm going to give this all up. You were doing that, but you were doing that in a place that you grew up in, your Def Jams, your Sonys, every all this, this structure, what the corporate world doesn't really change too much.
No.
And I was like, well, maybe that's the way to go. Maybe the safe road is the way to fly, and we just leave it at that. So it was some real thought, some real inner building of myself and everything to figure out what was the next point, and I had the support to whatever it was going to be. So
Wow,
That's a
man.
deep story, man.
Yeah, so starts a whole new chapter then, really, that you didn't even expect to happen at quite a late stage in your life, then, in that type of way, in the scheme of things. Like,
Yes, yes, yes. You only age yourself sometimes. You know what I'm saying? You only take away what you let be taken away. And once you have your confidence, there's really nothing that can stop you from doing anything you want in life. And it just keeps, even now, just something simple as to waking up and manifesting things that you want to do is as simple as that sometimes, to just get the ball rolling into the places that you want to go. So yeah, it was a
that,
lot
and
of
sometimes you
learning, a
just
lot of
need
learning
that
and stuff.
nudge. You need that
Yeah, that
nudge,
little
don't
nudge.
you?
Yeah, yeah, that
Wow.
little nudge. Yeah.
So take me then from network. Take me now to let's join the dots between network and Life in Motion. Then the next
Ooh.
album, because that I would say was probably a huge period of change.
Oh, all kinds of. I'm flying through a time warp right now, but so yeah, the network happens. We spend some time with that. Really happy with it. Really happy with the fact that I have something that's commercially out there for whatever it was worth. Uh, some time in between. I'm coming back to the scene. Oh, dubstep. Yes.
Hmm.
Uh, dubstep was my reintroduction back into the electronic world, so to speak. Konkrete Jungle had started to subside a little bit. There wasn't really much jungle going on, and then a couple of friends was like, "Hey, there used to be this guy Track. You should really get him to do these shows." Well, along with a fellow named Posy D at a spot called Webster Hall in New York, and it was something that was going off every Friday. We didn't know what was going on. Only knows that every time we went, there were lines around the corner in New York City, and it's like, you don't see that unless like a superstar is coming through or something. And in their
Hmm.
own right, all it was like these MLKs, your Neros, these guys were coming there, mashing out, one of the most legendary places in New York. And me and Posy were pretty much the MCs for that every Friday.
Wow. Okay. So it was
Yeah.
dubstep then that kind of brought you back onto that side of things.
Yeah, it kept me back in the rhythm of things. And amongst that vibe with D&B kind of subsided and starting to pick back up, I now was falling out with dubstep. and some opportunities were about where new people or new promoters were coming into the scene, and certain things were happening. And I think at the time, me and Paul SG we had met and we did some records, and two records that I did. One was This Is Me, that turned out to be Paul SG's album.
Hmm.
That was originally signed to Good Looking. And the other record was Let Me Show You, which Brian G took to put on the compilations volume 5 soul sessions, club sessions. And around the time that came out, I emceed one of the one of those sub club sessions variations, and then he came over. And when he came over, we did like some crazy party in Brooklyn. Like, it was like Brooklyn now was getting gentrified or something, and they had this club, and we went in there and we rocked it. And he had mentioned the idea of wanting to do like an EP or something, and I was like, an EP, that's cool. And then maybe a couple more months later, he came back. We ended up doing a really classic night in Brooklyn again. People stayed till like 5, 6 in the morning, drunk off their asses. The bartenders look happy. The security's dancing, and
Yeah,
we got
one
to
of
stop
those.
somehow, right? And it was one of the most fantastic. Hey, big ups to those guys, Will and all those guys. And he had hit me again and went from EP talk to an album talk. And I remember when he mentioned doing an album, that I was like, do I want to do an album? Do I really want to do an album? And I had the encouragement of people like, dude, if Brian wants you to do an album, you should do an album.
Yeah.
Like you should jump on an album no matter what it is. And so we started from there. And I think one of the first records I did was, I think it was Atlantic Connection, of the making of. I think that might have been the first record I did for the project.
Because it was a long time in the making, wasn't it? Because I remember I had to dig out this interview that I did with Brian, and it was
Mhm.
in 2015, and he was talking about stuff coming up, and he bigged you up, and he said about the album then, and I found the quote. So he said he's a rapper, but he does proper drum and bass. He brings the true hip hop vibe to Jungle. It sounds like Biggie on D&B. And like, you know, that's word for word what he would have said at the time. And I remember him.
Yeah.
And then I went back. I didn't realize that I had the network in my collection because I'd been
Oh.
sent it from BBE. So it was one of
Oh.
those ones, a bit like you had with Marc Mac, of not really kind of joining those dots and going, oh, right, okay. But I remember getting really excited when Brian was telling me about this album. That was 2015. So it took, you know, and there was probably, the album was probably deep in creation even by then, because there was a lot of moving parts, wasn't there? It was like people from 7 different countries, I think.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. If I can keep count of how many people wanted in and get involved, and how the creation of Life Emotion had to be one of the smoothest creations of making an album. It wasn't, let's
Wow.
figure out what track to use. It was, they sent a record, we worked on it, it made sense. Somebody sends a record, we worked on it, made sense. Everything just sort of just collided. Like, you know, it morphed. It just was whatever. It wasn't no second or third takes. It was, this works. You know what I
Wow.
mean? Um, yeah, that it's, a friend of mine says he compares Life Emotion to like what Illmatic may have meant for hip hop, and I was like, that's a huge.
Ooh,
And
wow.
if you know the story behind Illmatic, you'd be like, whoa, it is sort of same thing. It wasn't too many different this, and it just made sense with the right people and the right, you know, amazing producers all in the same space creating something wild. And it was easy. I'm not saying everything was 100% easy. There were records that were supposed to be on there. There's records that didn't make it. But for the most part, I really can't remember how bad those were because of how good everything else went. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. You only take, like you say, you take away what you want to take away from it, and you take away the positives, and the amount of people
yeah,
on that, you know, from Caliber and Serum, and then loads of American homies and stuff, you know, like it's, you've got everybody kind of representing your life so far there, your life in music, including IQ, including Marc Mac and stuff like that as well.
yeah. I think those, both of those guys are sentimental additions to the project for what they both meant to me, and it was really good to have them on the same record working as well. But like, I was sifting through some old footage from old phones and stuff, and there's a picture of me in my father's basement with Muhammad Ali poster on one side and a picture of my father in his cap and gown. And in the midst of that, I'm literally saying, and my good friend Serge had gave me this amazing painting on canvas. And I'm saying literally in front of the cell phone, I'm about to do something amazing. And I had no idea that I said that. And I was just like going crazy about, oh, so my mind was already there, even if I didn't necessarily feel there. My mind was already manifesting to, you're going to push yourself into a place. So the whole idea of Life Emotion, it's sarcastic in the level of like what people think sometimes of musicians or struggling musicians. Oh, you're wasting your time, and what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And it was my sarcasm to be like, well, look what I'm doing. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I found other kind of levels of meaning in the title as well. Because obviously, I mean, we've got to mention, and I'll mention in the intro as well, you know, it is exactly 5 years old, like 5 years and 2 weeks old to
Yeah.
the day that we're speaking now. Like, but at the time, you know, this really kind of this caught you at a moment. This is when you started doing a lot of traveling. And I think you said in one interview at the time that it was about traveling. And then I
Yeah.
found this other quote of yours from another interview about just growing up in New York. And this is what you said. You said, in my opinion, all kids who grow up in NYC grow up a lot faster than other cities because we see so much so quickly at times that we take it all for granted. And it wasn't until you started to travel that you began to picture a more balanced idea of life. And traveling still has that effect on you. And I'm
Big time.
guessing that was a huge driving force for the concept, really, and the meaning of life emotion in that type of way as well.
Yeah. Traveling kills Anxiety, traveling kills curiosity. Traveling brings balance. Even on the road to where you go, you're looking out the window at things. Hell, even if you're in the sky, you're looking at the clouds, you're going somewhere or whatever. But it just does like a certain calming for me, speaking for myself, that my mind just takes a little bit of ease that I'm about to experience something new, whether it's good or bad. I think you missed the point if you're looking for a bad scenario, just because the point is to get to A to B, and when you get there, you can't expect what you saw back at point A. You
Yeah.
have to expect something else. You have to see more, and it's going to teach you more about people and teach you more about customs and cultures, and I'm a big fan of those kind of things. So, you know,
Yeah. It also, and this is something that I will always take, certainly from the early years of being a journalist, and not, you just go where people send you, and you quite often you'll be put in the shittiest budget hotel, you'll be on the worst connecting flights. But you have to, if you want to go on that experience, then you have to make that journey, and you have to put faith in strange people driving you on the wrong side of the road at crazy times in night, in cars which probably wouldn't be that safe, or all of these type of things. You're putting faith in these people,
right.
and that cured a hell of a lot of anxiety for me, because you had to wave the white flag and just go, okay, I'm going with the flow. I'm literally living my life in motion. When you're on that tour cycle, or when you're traveling and going through that, you have
Mm-hmm.
to put a lot of faith in people, which normally you wouldn't in a day-to-day life, or you would choose, you probably, the more cautious person would choose not to.
Yeah, you have a different take on certain things because of traveling. I think like on humans. There's people who look like people know who would normally, if I was in the same space, I wouldn't even go close to them. And sometimes those people turn out being the most nicest people you ever met
Yep.
on the other side of the world, or wherever outside of your space. And you wouldn't know that unless, you like I said, balance is just a very, very strong word when it comes to like getting out there and stuff. And to try to find balance within compositions is not always easy as well. And I think because of the dreaming of traveling as well, the idea that I wanted to do so much better with myself and just put myself in a better space. I think all those things was like me being at peace along the way, So I was kind of already there, now that I think
Yeah.
about it, before I was actually there, which is crazy.
Yeah, that's beautiful. What are some of the most crowning moments of life in motion for you when you take yourself back to that time? Because obviously you've been on this journey, you've been through all of these kind of crazy phases, thought about quitting at least once, probably twice or three times by this stage. But definitely seriously at least once. So all of this is a bonus, really, in a way. So where was your head at then when you finished the album, when you're about to release it? How are you feeling?
Felt like Rocky putting his hands up at the top of the, you know what I
Yeah. I've got
mean? I felt
goosebumps
like Rocky.
again. Go on.
Man, nervous is not the word to use, but I compare it to my first time with rocking on stage with Bookham.
Oh
When he first
wow.
came to New York, I had 100 people. T, you got to be like this. You got to be like this. People know I'm good, but they're like, yo, you got to, you treat everybody wants to make sure that I'm at my best. And if you understand that, for me, it became pressure, and it became good pressure. But it was just like, oh my God, I'm going to be on stage with a diamond pretty much, and I need to look like a diamond, and I don't necessarily feel like a diamond. But the thing is, when I got there, and Cool Herc was there, Cool Herc came out that night. Amazing.
Wow.
I had a swollen arm from something that happened in Europe, and it was just crazy. So, came out, and it felt more like people expected me to be at my best. It wasn't one of those, will he do good? How good is he going to? It was like, no, we already know you can do this.
Track is going to smash it.
Right. And I didn't realize it until after a while that people were now just like, yes, yes, this is you right now. And it blew my mind in the midst of it. You know what I mean? And the reason why I bring up the sore hand, when Cool Herc came dancing on stage, at the time they were saying that he was a little sick, and he came dancing on stage. he grabbed this hand and squeezed it, and I screamed on stage like, ah! And so goes the story. But that's the same thing with Life in Motion, where it felt like, I don't know, maybe I like it too much. And when sometimes artists get too personal, it's just personal. And you don't know if people will see the same thing. But it turned out that everybody pretty much had their own favorite record on there.
Yeah.
Everybody loved the record. Yeah, that's amazing to accomplish as well for what it is. Wow.
Hugely. And now looking back, and it's been part of my life this week a lot while I've been listening to it in preparation for this conversation, is the fact that it's timeless. No one jumped on a trend. I think because you've got so many different people and so many different flavors, but your voice is the consistency.
Yeah.
Obviously people are doing different sounds now, like the Serum track. I love that sound of Serum, like that kind of constant sense of elevation.
Yeah.
That he doesn't really make those type of records anymore, but it's still that it doesn't sound dated. Nothing sounds dated.
No.
There was no kind of trends on there or anything like that. And it stood the test of time. I mean, 5 years is quite a long time in drum and bass, and that's
Drum and bass.
things can date really quickly. That's the art form, is being able to find your own sound and find the right people to work with. So you've got that kind of special energy to make it yours, really, isn't it?
Oh, look, man, I'm just going to count the lucky stars artist wise as to creating something that I believe, people will come back and be like, wow, this still is a really good, where, again, like you say, like, especially in drum and bass, songs get forgotten about in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And and somehow I managed to cut a little corner, a little something that's like, oh no, this is worth listening. This is worth coming back to. This is, and hopefully it can go a little longer. I mean, maybe it is, maybe it has, maybe, I don't want to jinx you, Life in Motion. I'm sorry, but it's just, it's a really good piece of work that I'm really, really proud of, and I'm happy that I can sit here and talk about it 5 years later, where Step Tune is still getting played. Blue, I just heard Blue the other day at a show. Pick a record. Yeah, I heard Roots for Culture somewhere. So, man, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's blowing. That's great.
What doors did it open then after that? Because we met
Mhm.
within a year of it being released then at Sun and Bass for the first time. I think that was 2018. So that was still, the album was still pretty fresh by then in comparison to now.
Yeah, Doors. I think the Doors were more for a track than the album. The album just led to the legend, because if we're talking about the earlier times, like Sun and Bass, parties in Vienna, parties in London, Life in Motion is still bubbling. It's still getting out there to people. And those who have heard it are, of course, they're blown away by it. But I had already done like a lot of decent records where people just wanted to see me and talk to me about those records in particular, where, one person came up to me and says, yo, my boyfriend's into drum and bass because of you. I played him Black and White with me and Command Strange, and he was like, this is the one right here.
Yeah.
The parties arrived or something like that. And so it was just leading to that, and then Higher Ground, of course. So it all just helped part of the legend of T.R.A.C himself. So it was more of like an introduction of me, so to speak. Yeah, it was more like an introduction to the Eastern world, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. And consolidated, kind of galvanized everything that you'd done before there, really,
Yep.
and kind of drew a line in the sand and stuff
Yep.
like that. I mean, the only thing then is, once you've released an album of that level with that many people that's, that accomplished, then how do you approach your next album? And I'm sure you've thought about this a lot. I'm sure you're probably working on it. You've got material for, one of those ones.
The biggest question I'll say is, people have asked me what happens after you get your life in motion. And that is
Yeah.
such a very unique question to answer. Yeah.
I guess you get back to people when you know the answer.
Right. Yeah. I've been studying the answer is the best way to say it. I've been studying the answer.
But it's tricky. I mean, that, because there's the old cliche of it being like the difficult second album. That was the second album.
Yeah, the sophomore jinxes. I don't believe in jinxes anymore, because I know that it will be what it'll be. You can't recreate what you did before. You just have to keep going and see what other things lead to. So, it's still hit or miss in that sense. But
The one thing that did stop the motion, though, was the fact that during this 5 years, that we had at least 2 years where we couldn't move, and you literally couldn't move due to an injury and stuff like that. So that stopped the motion for a little
yeah,
while, and you got really into the podcasting stuff with Armani Rain,
on the rain,
and also launched a label as well with Ample
ample aptitude.
Aptitudes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dropped a
So
nice album on there as well, which was shouts to Maverick Soul. His belief in just opening up your own thing was like, he was a huge encouragement towards me starting the whole label thing. And yeah, that's still on the table as well. That's something I want to really take care of down the line for sure. So I'm absolutely really happy that we just talked about all this knowledge from Def Jam and from Columbia and all, but here we are. We're now applying it many years later to to the world, to how I want to do things or whatever. So yeah, I absolutely am blown away by that. That's crazy.
yeah. Yeah. What happens next for you now? What can you reveal for 2023? Because I know you're going to celebrate Life in Motion a little bit throughout the year, aren't you? You've got
Yeah,
other plans as well.
yeah. Things are coming along. I'm working with some amazing producers. Can I say anything?
Probably not.
I'll say this. I did a mixtape in 2019 called Next Level Event. It was like this crazy mixture of everything. It wasn't like just like your regular mixtape. It had live show bits. It had halftime parts of drum and bass records. It had classic track records. It had everything. I don't know how to explain it. It was something that was super creative that I did with my boy IQ at the time. And within recent moments, we got to talking about it and said, yo, why not just do a part two? I ended it saying, yo, I can only do this once. And so now we're like, yo, you should just do a part two just to. So thinking about all the pieces and what we're going to put where and what we're going to put how. So maybe there's a next level event part two on its way. And I'm really
Ooh.
excited to doing that as well, along with me and Winslow are working, of course. I can say that.
Yeah, because you dropped something last year with him.
Yes, yeah, we dropped two records last year, and I think this year we're going to be doing something else again. Yeah, okay, what I mean? But I can at least say that. He said it too, so you can't. We're doing something else. Goddamn, yeah.
I mean, Duncan is absolutely killing it, really. And I think, he represents this exciting, people like him, people like Justin Hawkes, like they represent this new energy, which I think America has been waiting for in drum and bass, really. There's a new generation kind of giving it, putting more energy into it, really. And it hasn't been this exciting for American drum and bass and jungle for, I'd say, probably about 20 years.
Yeah, no, you're on the nail. Justin Hawkes right now is, I don't even know what to say. Like, he is mind blowing just on a level of what he's been able to accomplish within, my God, and Winslow and you got your Echo Browns. There's a few
Maverick
other heads I
Soul.
might be skipping over. Yeah, these guys are out there. And they're respected on both sides of the earth, and they're consistent in the vibrance, and it's something that I think the state should be proud of overall. That's good that we still see the next generation of guys really taking over and really going in. So yeah, I'm blown
Yeah.
away by these guys.
Do you think because it was so underground and like touching back on that kind of that attitude that people had when they were establishing it back in the day, really fiercely, really, like very underground and trying to create this kind of thing which didn't exist in America, that because of that, the people who really believed the generation who established that, but they were too proud of it almost. They didn't want it to change or anything because they put so much in to really kind of, put that flag on the mast, that it took a while then for them to accept that a new generation are going to come through and also add to it and contribute to it and take it to the directions that they want to take it to.
I think drum and bass in the States was looking, it's a good metaphor I'm using here. I think drum and bass in the States was looking for a Dilla type. In other words, they wanted somebody that they can respect, that's from the grain, who does things and still makes it new within their confines. But you can't find a Dilla everywhere. You can't find what you have is the younger generation knows drum and bass through EDM, through dubstep, through techno, and those vibes. And one of their favorite DJs just happened to throw on a record that was like, "Yo, what is this?" And they went and saw it and found their way into a whole nother world that they were like, "Oh, this has been under our noses all this time." You know, in my opinion, you got to give that young person credit for even going out of their way to find this thing that people are talking about and making it there. So if they come in because they heard a harder version of drum and bass, it's because they just happen to, this is where it starts from them or whatever have you. Or if they come in from, a more soulful version, that's where it's sometimes things people go where they go. You know what I mean? It leads to wherever it leads to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not the entry point, it's where you decide to take it, really, in that
Right.
type of way. It was something that Audio Scribe, another really exciting
Yes.
US producer, said to
Mhm.
me in an interview fairly recently, is unlike in the UK where we've grown up with it on TV commercials and on daytime radio, you're still digging for it. So people find it in a different way. You're not exposed to it. So teenagers aren't exposed to it like we were in school. So you have to find it in that type of way. You find it in a different way. So there are other influences coming in, like a 15-year-old making a track in his bedroom in the UK is already influenced by drum and bass, whereas a 15-year-old in America is bringing in maybe elements of country, hip
Yeah.
hop, or kind of a trap or anything like that they would hear more commercially and be exposed to day to day. And that's really exciting because then you've suddenly got loads more influences coming into the melting pot.
Yeah, and those influences have always been there. Maybe not so much country to hear that or drum and bass it's something new. And I was like, well, this is supposed to happen. You know what I mean? This is supposed to come. I think maybe Zinc may have done like a reboot of a country drum and bass sort of ordeal. You know what I mean? But
Oh, there was
yeah,
something. I can't think of the name of it now. I'm annoyed that I can't remember that. I mean, Justin Hawkes also did it as well. And
right.
when I first heard about this, I literally sat down and I said, right, I'm not gonna like this. I refuse to like this. And at first I didn't because I thought it was cheesy. But then I listened to it again and again, and like the actual songcraft on it. And
Yes.
I had to admit to him in an interview exactly what I'm saying now. It's like I really wanted to hate it because I'm not a country guy. I'm not nothing about country. I stand for none of that. I don't grow up with it. It's another world to me, and it's not a world that I really care for. But what he did and where he comes from, and the fact that he's got country musicians involved in his family who are involved in the record, suddenly,
Right.
I got goosebumps again. No, it's an incredibly personal record, and he nailed it. And so, like, normally I wouldn't include country in that list of things, but he set a reference point or a benchmark there for that type of thing to happen, really, or showing that it can be done. These dots can
Yeah.
be joined.
I'm not much of a country guy myself, but I will admit to Cash Records. Johnny Cash is an
Ah, yeah,
amazing lyricist.
yeah.
Kenny Rogers, amazing. A few heads, but I listen from time to time to see where it is. There's a new guy, I forgot his name, but I saw him and I was like, oh, this guy. I listen to lyrics more than anything else, and if the vibe is happen to fit where I'm at, I'm even more happy. But just overall, seeing where the mindsets are for country, it was bound to happen. It was just it was bound to be seen. Uh, Justin should be waving that flag as hard as he can, just because it's part of his life and where he comes from.
Yeah,
And the bigger, the more ingredients, the better the overall gumbo. You know what I mean? So I think that it's a
definitely.
positive. It's way more positive than anything. Yes, some of us won't ever listen to whatever, but that there are people that will, and that's
Yeah.
something we have to come to grips with. So
Absolutely. And that's a really interesting point as well, from like the point of view of a rapper. You are
mhm.
always going to relate to the lyrics. That's what you listen to first in that way. In that way, I mean, this is kind of wrapping up a little bit now, but who excites you as a songwriter in our world, be that hip hop or drum and bass? Who really excites you and turns you on lyrically in that way?
Woo, Lord. So there's a couple records that Degs put out that are like,
Oh
oh,
yeah, go on,
introspective.
Degs.
Yeah, Degs probably doesn't get enough credit because he's also meteorically flying through the sky. But you pay attention to a lot of the records, of course, DR is a man of depth. DRS is a man of depth, and he wants to really get into that bluesy part of and put that into like a real amazing part of like what drum and bass means, and he does it super well. I've been paying attention to Dusky. Dusky's got some amazing music.
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as MCs are concerned, yeah. There may be a few others, but for the most part, those three are high on my radar for sure.
I mean, DRS was one of my first time I wrote about you was one of my
Mm.
first comparisons with your style, really, in
Uh,
that way, the US equivalent of DRS in that way, the
DRS.
ability to kind of touch on any type of vibe, but make it your own in that way and bring your own style to it. And I think, that comparison, which was quite a brazen one to make at the time, really. But I still stand by that now. I still think, there's no better comparison really in terms of versatility and realness as well. You're not just, you could hype up a party, but you're not hyping up parties. They're
Right.
not vacuous lyrics in any type of way.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with hype guys. I love those dudes. We need them. Call them response levels. But I just want to do my own thing. I want to be different kind of addition. I want to be my own pretty much instrument to a crowd when I'm out there more than anything else. You know what I mean? And I think again, diversity and the things we add to the space of it all, they all matter in some form. You just have to make it matter. You just have to figure out how can you make you work within the confines, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely working for you at the moment, man. What else can we hype up now? Because this is like, it's literally, the first week of January 2023. This is going to come out before the middle of January. What else? What else can we hype in that type of way for you, man?
Ah, man, I'm waiting for words. I'm waiting for some things to happen. Honestly, they just been, we're still a little slow to get to what we need to say, but I can say that yes, right now the next level event part two is definitely heavy on the mind. And for months from now, I worked with Carlito, who's doing an amazing project. There's a few people out there that I'm going blank. I'm going blank. I'm under pressure right now, Dave. But there's a few amazing things out there to happen. And honestly, what I want to put out there is that I want to do more live performances, and I want to do more. Just the hosting and emceeing is forever, but I just need to do like a proper showcase of amazing stuff that I've done over the years, and I'm going to probably try to work on that immensely.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Tapping back into like the last kind of 30 years, then, or last 25
Oof.
years of
Yeah,
track in that type of way.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Would that
That
be
is
with a
the
live
time.
band and stuff like that then as well? Or have you not got to that stage yet? How far are you into the manifesting side of it?
Uh, it's on paper as to what are the decisions. I'd love to do a band. I think a band is a little bit down the line. Hey, a band could be tomorrow, but I want to do it from more of a DJ MC sort of perspective where we just do something where it just feels like, cohesive with each other. And I guess that's the hip hop in, you know what I mean? Flip the next record in and scratch this in and throw it whatever kind of thing.
Yeah.
And but eventually I did say no, you need to do a live band and you need to look into that live aspect. But we'll see. And it's all on the table right now. It's just a lot of
Exciting.
work to put together.
Yeah. That's the most thrilling start though. That's the most thrilling part of a project, really, when you bring in with ideas and then it's working out how on earth you actually get it the fuck to happen.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Yeah. So yeah, uh that and I'm submerging in Toronto life. You know, all these things are just on the mind just because it's feels like this is literally the next step in growth and ways to move along. So yeah, I'm looking forward to see what I bring everyone. I'm really happy about the future, to be honest. So
Amazing, man. Amazing. I'm looking forward to hearing it and seeing it all, and hopefully seeing you when you come over to the UK as well next time,
yes,
or over to Europe and stuff. So, yeah,
yes,
hopefully I
yes.
will see you soon. Thank you so much for spending time with me on this podcast, man.
And thank you for having me. This was great again, Dave, man. Perfect.
One more thing. One more thing. One more thing.